Chapter 1. Have you ever opened your door to find this absolutely gorgeous hunky specimen of a man standing on the other side? I've dreamt just that repeatedly, to the point I'm frustrated with myself for not having a depth of imagination to move beyond this dream guy, pun intended, and into something more substantial. I mean, all he does is stand there with a sexy smirk on his face. Night after night, I see myself in this cozy little log cabin. There's an enormous fieldstone fireplace dominating the room. The warmth from its roaring fire permeates every crack and crevice of the small but spacious room. Either there's no electricity or it's gone out for some reason, because I'm sitting curled up in an overstuffed tweed-covered club chair reading a book by lantern light. I can't see the title of the book, but by the look of the cover I'd guess it's a romance novel. I feel pretty content and peaceful. Then it happens. There's a loud knock on the door. I quietly put my book down and unfold myself out of the chair to go answer the door. When I open the door, he's standing there just as bold as you please. He's tall, dark, handsome, and super hunky. There's a smirk on his face and firelight in his eyes. Then I wake up. I shifted uncomfortably in the chair while watching Dr. McKenna write in a notebook. After a long, uncomfortable silence in which the good doctor never once looked my way, I cleared my throat in an exaggerated manner. "How long have you had this reoccurring dream?" the slender, middle-aged doctor asked with a patient smile. I studied the platinum blonde opposite me for a considerable length of time before answering. Noting for the first time how the woman's brown eyes reflected a similar light to the man in my dreams, I wondered if that's where I got the inspiration to add that trait to him. "They started shortly after I started seeing you," I replied. "Why, that was months ago," the doctor said with surprise. "It feels like forever," I moaned. "In the beginning, I found them exciting. Now I just wish I could move further with them or dream of something else, as like Groundhog Day nightly." The good doctor surprised me with, "Are you currently dating?" "Are you insinuating that I'm fantasizing about this hunk because I lack a boyfriend?" I asked indignantly. "The mind is a complex thing. I'm simply looking for a direction in which to search for the reason behind your dreams," she explained. "I don't understand why you waited so long to mention them." "I was sent here by my company for their mandatory therapy to help deal with work-related issues," I said as I did my best to control my irritation. "It's a routine thing we all have to go through periodically. My dreams don't pertain to work." "Being a software designer for a gaming company the size of Playtronics can be stressful," she mused. "Hence the mandatory visits to the shrink every so often," I blurted. "As well as the invasion of your sleep with dreams, that could very well be your mind trying to tell you about a new game," she added. "I don't deal with erotic software," I complained. "Does a hunky man equate to erotic?" she asked with raised brow. Feeling embarrassingly self-conscious, I lowered my gaze and shook my head. "I believe there is something far deeper going on than just you dreaming about a man you may or may not desire. I'd like to explore this further." "My sessions are up," I protested. "I'd like to continue them," she added. "Is this a mandatory thing?" I asked while raising my own brow in a manner similar to the way she just raised hers. "You know it isn't," she said with exasperation. "I'll think about it," I said as I stood to make my leave. "This may be your last session, but your time isn't up yet," she said commandingly. "Sit." I looked at my watch and scowled as I plopped my backside back down onto the chair while looking at the clock on the wall. 3 minutes? Are you serious? "A lot can be said in 3 minutes," she said briskly. "Such as?" I asked. She looked at her wristwatch and wrote something in a notebook while speaking without looking up at me. "I'd like you to attend a weekend retreat the week after next." "If I don't?" I asked boldly as I stood back up. "Let's not find out, okay?" she said gently. After locking eyes with my stubborn therapist, I slumped my shoulders and muttered, "Email the directions to me." "I'll do one better," she said with a broad smile. "I'll pick you up and drive you there myself." With a rapid shake of my head, I did my best to verbally dissuade the good doctor from doing me the service of taxiing me to a retreat, but to no avail. By the time I left her office, my heart was heavy with apprehension. I assumed it was because I disliked baring my belly to anyone in the way that she insisted I do with her, but a deep nagging in the pit of my stomach suggested that it just might be something more than that. Fitful nights occupied by the same dream and stressful work deadlines left me feeling incapable of resisting her insistence to attend her weekend retreat. Who knows? A retreat just might be the ticket to cure my insomnia and shattered nerves. As I stepped out of the 4-story brick building that housed the office of Dr. Sally McKenna, M.D., stroke psychiatrist, I was greeted by my overly anxious friend Chris. "Damn, girl," Chris said as she matched her step with mine while walking as far away from that place as possible. "What did she do? Make you run the gamut? I've been out here for ages." "I couldn't get her to relinquish one precious minute of her time," I said. "I need a drink." "Roger's waiting for us back at the office," Chris said quietly. "I need a drink," I said again. She must have picked up on the sense of urgency I felt, because she nodded and then stepped onto the curb to hail a cab. "Mickey sound good?" she asked. "Perfect," I replied. Mickey's Pub was a small Irish bar that was only a 10-minute cab ride from work and fairly centrally located between my home and my circle of friends. We met there so often it could easily be labelled our hangout. As we entered the dusky interior, my nostrils flared with a familiar scent of booze, polished wood, cleaning solution, and body odor. "Gertrude Hitchcock, as I live and breathe," came a deep voice from the shadows. "After all these years, can my eyes be deceiving me?" I turned to look into a pair of deep-set eyes that I never expected to have to look into again. Their rich blue-black hue accentuated the natural evilness that plagued me all through school. The oversized nose on the square face that was scarred by adolescent acne rested at an angle as a result of being broken by the wide board that I'd swung with that very intention when I was in junior high. "No one calls me Gertrude anymore, Jackal," I said, emphasizing the immature nickname that I'd given Jack Adams long ago. "Who's this, Gertie?" Chris asked. "Gertie," he said with disdain. "He's an old pain in the ass come back to haunt me," I grumbled as I made my way to the bar. "I came to see if you're going to attend the funeral," Jack said as he kept pace at my heels like a mad dog. "You weren't at the wake. Does that mean that you won't be at the funeral?" My body tensed as I listened to his taunting tone. The last thing I wanted was for evil Jack Adams to know that I had no idea who died that we'd both know. "Who died?" Chris asked. She was clearly still trying to make sense of what was happening. "Why not ask her?" Jack snarled. "Jim Beam on the rocks," I said to the bartender that I'd never seen before. "Make it 4 fingers." With a raise of a brow and a broad smile, the unfamiliar bartender went to work. "Gertie?" Chris said questioningly. The last thing I needed was to be taunted by my high school nemesis. My nerves were incapable of dealing with the stress. I placed elbows on the bar and buried my face in my hands. "Feigning remorse," Jack sneered. "Bart," I said as I groaned into my hands. Jack's comment about my feigning remorse over the death of someone we both knew was the only clue I needed to realize the deceased was my ex-fiancé Bart Matthews. "Your ex-fiancé Bart?" Chris gasped. "I can't believe you couldn't muster up enough decency to pay your respects," Jack said. "Leave us," I snapped as I whirled around to give the full effect of my glower, "or I'll rip that ugly nose right off your face instead of simply breaking it." "Still a bitch," he said as he crept back into the shadows. "Don't forget it," I said threateningly. "Who the hell is that? And is Bart really dead?" Chris whispered as she took a sip of my whiskey. I motioned for the bartender to prepare the identical drink for my friend while I proceeded to explain my painful history with both Bart Matthews and Jack Adams. I was never a popular girl while growing up in a small town in upstate New York. My body was too skinny, my hair too curly, my teeth were too crooked, and my brain was too smart. A change in my diet, exercise, a good beautician, and an outrageously expensive orthodontist took care of the cosmetic tragedies. Surrounding myself with geeks who equaled, if not bested me, took care of the braininess. Jack was a school bully who plagued me throughout school simply because he could. Bart was his friend, although at the time I couldn't understand why, who took pity on me when I was 15 and stood up to Jack when he took my school books and tried to toss them down the sewer manhole. Back then it took very little kindness to win me over. Needless to say, after that one heroic act from Bart, I was head over heels in love. Of course it wasn't reciprocated. It wasn't until I'd gone through my transformation from ugly duckling to swan and was home during my last year of college for the holidays and bumped into him at a party before Bart paid me much notice. By then I was no stranger to relationships, but the memories and gratitude of his simple act of kindness lured me in. It got serious fairly quickly. By summer, we were engaged. We moved in with each other after I graduated. That was the beginning of our end. The shine quickly wore off the penny. I soon discovered a side of Bart that he'd kept hidden from me. He wasn't as evil as his best buddy Jack, but he could still be cruel. He justified his behavior by pointing out that his abusiveness was directed toward animals instead of people. When I told Bart that I couldn't marry such a sadist, he fabricated a story about me preferring girls over men, and he just wasn't into such things. His family and friends, which was most of the town, believed him and cursed me for leading him on. Oh, it was a mess. With the town being as small as it was, and with Bart's family having such a strong foothold in said town, I decided to not only move out of the apartment I shared with Bart, but I moved right out of town. The home of a college friend in the Queensborough of New York City was only a train ride away.